Excuse me. At this time, I'll call a special meeting, the East Hempfield Township Zoning Hearing Board to order. Members who are present this evening, Mr. Hanson, Mr. Kyle, Mr. Bingham, and Mr. Luce is participating by Zoom. Can you hear us, Andy?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Got that picture.
Yeah, you should be smiling like that. Okay.
I'm on vacation. Of course, I'm going to smile.
I know.
Mhm.
Thank you for taking time for the vacation.
Yeah.
Be on Zoom. Okay, we have also with us this evening, Jason Hess, our solicitor. We have Beth Graham, who's our zoning officer. We have with us court reporter. We have just this one case tonight, Colebrook validity challenge. This board will hear this continued case in an informal manner without strict compliance with the rules of procedure used in a court trial. We ask the applicant and any individuals interested in the case to step in front of our table and explain circumstances involved in their application. Applicants may present their case themselves through their attorneys or other representatives. My fellow board members and I, as well as our solicitor, may ask the applicant questions from time to time during the applicant's presentation or at the conclusion. All persons having an interest in the application will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant, offer evidence of their own, and inform the board of their position on the matter. In the interest of a prompt and orderly disposition of this case, we will ask any individual to refrain from speaking until the applicant's presentation has been completed and the board has had the opportunity to question the applicant. As we proceed with this case, people who are interested in this case should decide whether they desire to be parties to it. By being given the status of a party, that person will be entitled to receive notice of the decision in this case, and we're entitled to participate in any subsequent appeal or rehearing. Individuals who are not given party status may nonetheless ask questions and present evidence, but will not receive notice of the decision, will not automatically be entitled to participate in any appeal or subsequent rehearing. If you desire to be a party, we ask that you sign an entry of appearance form at the appropriate time. And although each party will receive a written copy of the decision, the mechanics of typing and signing the decision will take approximately 4 weeks. We ask that each person who asks a question or makes a statement first state his or her name and address for the court report. Now lastly, in the interest of time, I'll administer the oath of affirmation to all applicants and to everyone and anyone who anticipates making any statement with respect to the hearing this evening. So at this time, will you all rise, please? Will somebody rise, please? Is there anybody here? He is, right? Okay. On the penalties of perjury, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So please say I do. I do. Thank you. And I don't see anybody on Zoom. Please stand and please flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Beth, the property has been advertised and posted in accordance with the Sunshine Law and in the MPC.
It has been.
Okay. Also, for everybody's knowledge, the board minutes are being taken by Judy, who is on Zoom. Thank you, Judy. Okay, gentlemen, you have received a copy of the board's April 19th, 18th, 2024 minutes. There's no additions, deletions, or corrections. I'll listen to a motion to approve the April 18th, 2024 board minutes. Motion to approve. Motion to approve by Mr. Bingham. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hanson. Any discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none. Mr. Hanson,
In favor.
Mr. Luce,
In favor.
Mr. Kyle, in favor, Mr. Bingham,
In favor.
and I'll also vote in favor. So the board minutes of April 18, 2024 have been approved. Before we proceed with the testimony, I'll turn it over to our solicitor, Mr. Hess.
Thank you. I just had a few administrative things to go through, before we start. Had, court reporter Mark, some zoning hearing board exhibits for us and, distributed copies to council. The first one is a, copy of the proof of publication, that's, giving notice of the first hearing in this matter on March 21st, 2024. The hearing board exhibit number 2 is copy of the notice of the posting of the properties of the property for the first hearing in March. Zoning hearing board exhibit number 3 is a copy of the proof of publication for this hearing, this continued hearing, and zoning hearing board exhibit number 4 is a photo of the public notice posted at the property. And I guess I'll add that we can just use this published or posted at least 7 days prior to today's hearing. Okay. And then zoning hearing board exhibit number 5 is a copy of a letter from Attorney Nagel, dated May 2nd, 2024, in which he, on behalf of his client, they waived the 45-day the requirement to have hearing within 45 days of the previous hearing. So just wanted to get those on record. And there's also an issue of we're coming up on 100 days, I guess, for the applicant's case. And I think it was maybe discussed at the first hearing that there's, the NPC does have a 100-day requirement for the applicant's case, and we're coming up on that. And is there an agreement that that's waived and that the township would have as much time as the applicant to present their case?
Yes,
There was,
Great, thank you. One other piece for administration, just so everybody knows, besides in person, we also are having this hearing on Zoom. As of now, the only people that are on it there is Mr. Luce, board member Judy, who's taking the minutes. I do not see any other individuals. Okay, before we start the case, Mr. Hanson has a question or two for Mr. Nagel.
Mr. Nagel, back in the March meeting, I asked you about why you didn't use 270-1.9. Use is not provided for. You answered the application includes a claim for exclusionary zoning. Can you elaborate what you mean by that exclusionary zoning?
meaning that the zoning does not provide for the use that we're discussing, which is multifamily development.
Mr. Nagel, 1 second, just Beth, can you hear Mr. Nagel?
Judy.
Oh, Judy. Yeah, Beth. I'm glad everybody else is paying attention. Judy, can you hear Mr. Nagel?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, thank you.
So you said it doesn't provide for, multifamily. I think Mr. Cassie testified there are 4 areas in town that we can do or multifamily. Are you sure it's not because it doesn't, the township ordinance doesn't provide for high density?
It's an issue of the legal argument in the case. And I think it's something that I'll be prepared to talk about when all the testimony and evidence has been concluded. But I understand your question, and I'll make a note of it and make sure that that's addressed at that time.
Suppose, I'm just being hypothetical here, this board agrees with the applicant that there is no high density multifamily and it should be put into the zoning ordinance. If we were to take the Colebrook Associates property and that was to be rezoned high density, just that one property, couldn't you look at that as being spot zoning, which is not permitted in the state?
No, because if that's the board's finding, then the applicant and the applicant only is entitled to the appropriate relief, which would be the density applied to the applicant's property.
Okay. Mr. Polinsky, and I know he's not here, testified at the March meeting that 11 to 12 units per acre is what they need to get their return on investment. Let's say the board agrees with you and does provide for a high density zoning, but the board thinks it should be 9.5 dwellings per acre.
That's a good question. The applicant will present, before all of the testimony and evidence is concluded, the testimony of a civil engineer who will testify about the appropriate density for the property. And from that testimony, there may even be more than one option in terms of what the applicant thinks would satisfy or would allow the zoning hearing board alternatives in terms of a solution plan. And so I would expect that those solution plans would have varying density, and that would give the zoning hearing board the opportunity to include in its decision what it thinks the density needs to be to solve the legal problem that we've raised.
And again, this would probably be a better question for Mr. Polinsky, but he's not here. The plan that was presented at the April 22nd, 2023 zoning board meeting was for 8.5 units per acre. Why here 14 months later does that number not work?
That plan was the 196 unit variance plan. And so Mr. Polinsky had explained in his testimony, as I recall it, that when his lawyers at the time advised him that he had to seek a variance, he had to ask for the minimum variance that would provide relief to provisions that they were seeking variances from within out of the zoning ordinance. That's a different standard than what we're working with in this hearing.
Okay. All right.
You're welcome.
With that, we will continue where we left off last month And I'm correct, 2 months ago, I guess. You were done with the witness? Is that correct or not?
No, I still had some more,
Okay,
some additional questions for the witness.
that's fine, and then please call your witness.
And before I do that, so that I don't forget at the end of the night, a solicitor for the township and I discussed, we both have time out of the jurisdiction in August, and we won't be able to proceed with any hearing during the month of August. I wanted to let the board know that because I'm sure everybody's trying to make summer plans. And so we wanted to give you advance notice of that now, that we would expect to be back in July, continuing with the hearing. And then at the end of the July hearing, we would ask that it be continued to September.
Did you say neither one of you have any open days in August? Or-
I think we could confer about that further and report back in July, but I think we could do that right now and let you know. But we're both away for quite some time during the month of August.
We'll just proceed till July and then we'll go from there. If something comes up, maybe you two can work something out. If not, plus, no matter what you two work out, you gotta work with us.
Of course, and that's why we wanted to raise it tonight, because we didn't want you to plan to be here on that night in August, only to find out in July that we know now, so we wanted to let you know now.
Okay.
My issue with this is, we have a July meeting, and we got another 60 days for the next meeting. It's starting to get, I don't remember as well as I used to.
Understood.
But let's proceed till tonight and then July, and then we'll decide what's happening as far as August and after that.
Very good. Okay, well, the applicant will continue with the testimony of Dr. Cassidy. And when last we were here, we left off, I had asked Dr. Cassidy a question or two about Pennsylvania MPC section 6044, and I'll continue with that line of questioning. Dr. Cassidy, in your professional opinion, what changes in the township's zoning ordinance would you recommend in order to bring the township's zoning ordinance into compliance with Pennsylvania MPC section 604 parens 4 closed parens relative to the provision of multifamily dwellings?
For the township, can everybody hear me okay? For the township to achieve compliance with, NBC section 604, or parenthesis 4, respecting the mandatory provision for multifamily housing, the unduly restricted density limitations in the RN zoning district must be increased, and new area and bulk standards, governing multifamily dwellings must be adopted.
It's not. Just to refresh us here. Could you explain to us what 604.4 says?
Six oh four point four is, from the Southeast Planning Code, and this is, 604 is the section, that outlines the provisions of zoning ordinances, shall be designed. And so, number 4, parentheses 4, is provide for the use of land within any municipality for residential housing of various dwelling types encompassing all basic forms of housing, including single-family and two-family dwellings, and a reasonable range of multifamily dwellings in various arrangements. Mobile homes and mobile home parks, provided, however, that no zoning ordinance shall be deemed invalid for the failure to provide for any other specific dwelling type.
And Mr. Novel, do you have other?
Yes, it's Exhibit A27.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What density limitations and area and bulk standards would be needed in the zoning ordinance in order to achieve compliance, in your opinion?
As I previously testified, the current multifamily density of 5 dwelling units per acre is, in my opinion, archaic and does not constitute a workable density for multifamily housing. And I would recommend a density of 10 to 12 dwelling units per acre to achieve an average of 9 dwelling units per acre throughout the township, as recommended by Places 2040. And that those densities are sufficient to permit multifamily dwellings to be constructed. In addition, I think that the area, as I've testified previously, if you refer back to exhibits A17, A18, and A19, they were showing the limitations related to building height and building area as well as density. And through the, based on the information provided in those exhibits, the area and bulk regulation should permit 4-story buildings, which would be 55 to 60 feet in height. And the building area should be increased from the 10,000 square feet limitation that it is now to at least 30,000 square feet.
In your professional opinion, does the township's 2016 comprehensive plan lay out a quantitative growth strategy for multifamily dwelling development to accommodate future population growth in East Hempfield Township?
It does not. Despite both the township's comprehensive plan and the Places 2040 comprehensive plan, that's the county's comprehensive plan, are based on the same population growth projections. The township plan does not offer a quantitative growth strategy to provide densities to enable the construction of new multifamily residential housing to accommodate that projected population growth. And the township's comprehensive plan, it doesn't identify a target density. In other words, so when you look at the county plan, Places 2040, they talk about an average target density of 9 dwelling units per acre, and there's no quantitative number like that included in the county plan.
I'm showing you an exhibit marked A28 for identification. Can you identify what that is?
Yes, the pages 17 and 18 of the East Hempfield Township Comprehensive Plan 2016.
Does the East Hempfield Township Comprehensive Plan of 2016 articulate any strategy relative to future multifamily residential development?
The township's general strategy for land use is outlined in its vision for the future on page 17, but there's not a specific strategy for multifamily housing. The general strategy is that growth in East Hempfield Township will continue to shift towards infill and redevelopment will occur primarily south of 283 within the urban growth area, with additional housing, commercial, and light industrial uses. And on these two pages, following that vision for the future, 4 opportunities are outlined: agricultural holding areas, infill development, redevelopment / adaptive reuse, and number 4 is villages. And essentially, what the plan is pointing toward here is that the agricultural holding areas, they're characterized as being held in reserve to accommodate future growth needs, but it doesn't say or anticipate what those future growth needs might be. They're just there.
And they're not zoned for multifamily development.
It's currently zoned for agricultural uses and some other very limited single family uses. And infill development is which is the second one, says that throughout the township, individual parcels and small clusters of parcels remain unimproved, and many of these parcels exist in already established developments resulting from smaller subdivisions, and the township encourages development of these infill sites. Redevelopment and adaptive reuse, this is number 3, is pointing to the fact that there are several places where there are vacant, abandoned, and underutilized buildings throughout the township, and specifically points to old tobacco warehouses that may be an opportunity for some residential units. And number 4, villages, points out that the villages contain numerous historically significant structures, but it doesn't really specify how they might be used or what the vision might be for those. So that's the overall strategy.
In your opinion, as a professional land planner, how do you interpret East Hempfield Township's planning vision for the future that you just reviewed with respect to multifamily housing?
I would say that there's no specific vision for multifamily housing, and that it's really a matter of maintaining the status quo. And the township comprehensive plan assumes that incremental infill growth at current densities of 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre is adequate. However, the current patterns and densities do not address the needs for multifamily housing specifically. And when you just look at these strategies that were laid out in Exhibit 828 from the comp plan, it's all pointing toward, well, we can infill a little bit here and we can do a little bit there, but there's not this overall notion of no one has sat down, done the math and said, we need to accommodate this much growth, here's how we're going to get there, and laid out a quantitative strategy.
I'm handing you an exhibit marked 829. for identification. Can you identify that exhibit, please?
Yes. This is, map number 7. It's the East Hempfield Township current and future land use. It is page 50 from the East Hempfield Township Comprehensive Plan.
What do the terms current land use and future land use mean? Or the phrases, I guess to say, the phrase current land use versus the phrase future land use, what do those phrases mean?
Current land use refers to the present condition of how the land is being used. And future land use designates the general location, distribution, and planned allocation for various land uses.
Is it typical planning practice to have one map that shows both current and future land use as the same map or as the same uses?
It is not typical.
In your professional opinion, what is the significance of the township's use of a single current and future land use map in its comprehensive plan?
I think that it shows that the township does not expect there to be a change of growth or change in future land use during the period of this comprehensive plan. And it's not customary to have them as the same plan, because generally what happens is that the current land use is considered to be it's an inventory, if you will. If we went out today and we took stock of what exists throughout the township, and the future land use map is looking into the future and trying to plan for the disposition of the township over the next 10+ years. And it's usually the summary graphic, if you will, of a comprehensive plan, and acts as a type of compass to guide future land use planning decisions.
Is it fair to say that map 7 conveys the assumption that no land use change will occur or needs to occur within the township?
I think that is a safe assumption.
David, can I just ask a question based on the last one?
Sure.
Are you saying that the township is saying that we have to zone what's shown as agricultural to some other type of use if that use has already been totally developed?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you were asking.
No, I just asked if I could interrupt.
That is, so I'm sorry, you are asking about changing, I believe that's the question, I'm sorry.
Okay. Are you saying that, you were saying that the township and your plan is basically saying that there will be no need in the future to change their present outlook for the township? So are you saying that if a particular use designation is built out, that the township has to rezone other land in order for that use to be expanded?
That's not exactly what I'm getting at, although that could be a possibility depending on what would happen. What I'm really saying is that in order to know what in order for the township to know what it would need to do, as I'm using the county plan as a model, is that they would look at the future population growth that's projected for the township, and they would be anticipating that that's going to result in a need for more multifamily housing. And the result of that would be providing appropriate densities on properties that would enable that to occur.
Isn't it true that the township's comprehensive plan, I mean, has to be really consistent with the county plans? And actually can, in some cases, I guess you would say, deviate from the county plan?
It's not that it is going to be identical to the county plan, but they're using the same population data, so it's census data. And so since the population data is the same source, and that becomes a constant in terms of what needs to be accommodated, they're not telling the county isn't telling the township where and how exactly that you need to accommodate the growth. They're recommending that all that growth, as you folks have, should occur within the urban growth area, and that's a good planning strategy. However, after that, it becomes a question of which properties and which locations would be most appropriate in order to accommodate the growth.
Okay, thank you.
I take one here.
Yes.
So. Go back to, I think it was 1994, or the 1994, when there was high density in the township. Kathy, you're saying if that particular zoning ordinance, the one before 1994, if what was zoned high density was built out, township should then zone something else as high density, even though they provided for it, even though the state doesn't require that.
I'm not making any specific claims about what the township's ordinance is 1994. I'm talking about.
What you just answered, Mr. Herr, I'm just saying, as the township has grown, if that area that was zoned high density back before the 1994 ordinance change was built out, based on what you're saying is then the township should now rezone other properties to be high density, even though they have it, even though it's built out, even though the state doesn't require it.
Mr. Hanson, I have to interrupt. That's not what the witness said. I think he said that he wasn't saying that.
Okay.
That's certainly not, that wouldn't be legally, that wouldn't be my position of what the township has.
I gave that understood him, but I thought that's what he said.
In fact, Dr. Cassidy, part of your earlier testimony, not tonight, but previously, was that part of the way the township preserves the agricultural land to the north of 283 is to provide for appropriate densities within the urban growth area as recommended by the county comprehensive plan, as recommended by the LIMC comprehensive plan, correct?
That's correct.
Let me rephrase my question then. So let's take the area of Colebrook Apartments. I'm not even sure what it's called anymore. It used to be Colonial Crest. A lot of area used to be zoned high density. It gets built out. There's no more room to build any high density there. Are we saying the township should at that point rezone some other land here south of 283 to be high density so they can continue to put high density in to go along with the county plan?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. So imagine that it's 50 years from now in the future, and there are 100,000 more people living in this township than live here today. You would need to make some land planning and zoning choices that would be based on accommodating the growth of the population in the township. So the world is not static, and I don't have a crystal ball to know what will happen in the future. I'm simply talking about the current period in which we were working.
I understand that, but isn't there a point where a municipality reaches full growth?
Yes. We haven't taken a position that is along the lines of what you're suggesting. We haven't made that suggestion.
I'm just trying to clarify that because he was kind of leading me in that direction. But again, you answered my question. A municipality can be grown out. There can be no more expansion at that point. Thank you.
I interrupted you. I apologize for taking that time. So, you case.
Absolutely, thank you. In a prior night of testimony of yours, Dr. Cassidy, you identified Exhibit A30 as being page 19 of the East Hempfield Township Comprehensive Plan of 2016. Do you recall that?
I do.
Does page 19 of the East Hempfield Township Comprehensive Plan of 2016, which is marked A30, provide an explanation of why the township showed future land use and current land use as the same on map 7?
It does. This is at the top of page 19, which is A30, and it's from the comprehensive plan. It says map 7, current and future land use. It says this map shows both current and future land use. Typically, a comprehensive plan which shows separate maps for each. However, it is not the intention of this comprehensive plan to propose a different land use scenario for the township at this time.
In your professional opinion as a land planner, what is the significance of the township's planning statement that you just read?
Well, first, the township has indicated that it has no intention to plan for growth and change. And second, as it relates to multifamily housing, despite the projected population growth, the township does not propose any changes for future land use.
What land uses are identified in the legend on the current and future land use, map 7?
Residential, commercial/industrial, utility, community service, recreational, and agricultural.
In which land use category are multifamily residential uses such as the Colebrook property shown?
They are classified as commercial/industrial.
Would you classify multifamily residential as a commercial/industrial use?
I would not. It is definitely residential.
Do you have an opinion as to why multifamily residential would be classified by the township as commercial/industrial as it's shown on map 7?
I'm assuming that it's a matter of if you look at the plan, this is the map 7. It actually has a note on here saying that it was developed from GIS data. I'm assuming it's because that since these are not owner-occupied single-family homes, that they are identified as businesses owned by landlord companies, and that somehow that data code was picked up as something that someone used to classify these parcels. Nonetheless, they are residential uses and they should have been mapped as such.
You're assuming that, or based on your experience as a land planner, you're concluding that that's what's going on here?
I'm assuming that there was initially some raw data that someone took and somehow they ascribed this land use code to it as commercial industrial. However, they should have, since they were doing the comprehensive plan, they should have confirmed that the properties that they were mapping as commercial industrial are in fact residential properties. And unless the intent of the current and future land use map is that these properties would be commercial industrial in the future. That is, doesn't say.
And the fact that you were mentioning that they should have been labeled as residential uses, why does that matter?
Well, it matters because if it's not mapped, and this document is supposed to be this, again, this compass, this directional tool for making land use and planning decisions going into the future, then if they're out of sight, they're out of mind. I mean, it's these types of residential uses are not being identified as being residential, and so they, I'm speculating, but they're rentals, and these are non-owner occupied residences, and so they're just other. They just fell into the category of not being counted as residential.
I'm showing you a document marked 839 for identification. Can you identify what that is?
Yes, this is page 24 from the East Hempfield Township Comprehensive Plan of 2016, and this shows goals and strategies to encourage sustainable and responsible rental housing, which benefits the township.
And it shows strategies for that?
Yes, there are 3 strategies, and there's H41 through H43, and H41 is to encourage rental housing to be owner occupied, and then in parentheses, i.e. property owner lives in one of the units and rents others. Number 2, H42 is review and amend zoning ordinance requirements to allow greater flexibility with multi-generational housing, in parentheses, i.e. mother-in-law suites. And H43 is to establish a rental housing registry to monitor multifamily rentals and non-owner occupied rental housing, including contact information for the responsible party.
In your opinion, what is the implication of those strategies that you just reviewed?
Well, it implies to me, first of all, that rental units are viewed as non-owner occupied residences are viewed suspiciously and that they need to be monitored.
Based on your previous testimony and your experience as a professional land planner and an author and drafter of municipal zoning ordinances, how would you characterize the township's provision for multifamily dwellings in its zoning ordinance?
I would characterize it as illusory.
Excuse me, as what?
Illusory, as in the creation of an illusion.
Why do you say that?
I say that because while you can look at the 4 zoning districts where multifamily uses are permitted, and they are permitted in name. However, the area and bulk standards and the density standards and all the other supporting regulations are really not standards that would support those uses. And so they're there in appearance, but they are not there in terms of the reality of being realized as a real set of regulations that would enable multifamily housing to develop.
In your professional opinion, what is the practical effect of these various zoning and building regulations that you've mentioned on multifamily residential development in East Hempfield Township?
They substantially deter and discourage multifamily development and promulgate single-family detached and unattached homes such as duplexes and twins, townhouses, stack flats, because the densities and again, the area and bulk standards that are provided are appropriate for those types of land uses. And it's interesting, and we've already submitted exhibits again, A17, A18, and A19, where we have shown the different standards that are available for multifamily. And for example, if you go to height, that's something where, as I've testified before, there is a different standard in there for multifamily housing than there is for single families in terms of building height. It's actually more restrictive. And so it just makes no sense whatsoever. They've taken the time to draft a different standard, but the standard is a more restrictive standard. So the result is that when you review this and you say, okay, fine, what am I going to do with 5 dwelling units per acre? The result is that because there are all these impediments to doing multifamily housing, and then on the other hand, you can achieve the maximum density, as we've already shown, with a variety of single family attached and detached house types, then essentially it just makes it a situation where there's too many things that are pushing against the idea of developing multifamily, and there's really no purpose in bringing that one. You just build single family homes.
I'm showing you an exhibit marked A38 for identification. Can you identify that?
Yes, this is, it's 2 pages. First page is labeled, scheme 4-story 4-3A, multifamily residential expansion over Hempfield Township, Oxford, Pennsylvania. And the second page, is showing, plans for a multifamily building. And, these are plans that my firm prepared.
And when did your firm prepare the plans?
The plan is dated, November 8th, 2021. That's the actual plan, and then the, floor plans are dated, August 23rd, 2020.
Can you provide the board with some context for why this plan was produced?
Yes, the owners of the property, asked us to look at the best ways to potentially expand and develop the 27 acres, that are currently, vacant farmland, that are part of the overall property. And so we conducted a series of exercises where we developed this plan as well as others, but this was the plan that in the end we felt was the actually the most sensitive toward the site in terms of preserving the most open space and creating the best environment for future residents.
And if I'm looking at page 1 of A38, the area that's shaded kind of like a pale yellowish green and then has improvements shown within it, that's the vacant 27 acres at the Colebrook site, correct?
That's correct. And that's correct. You have these up on the screen. I can walk somebody through them, but if not, yeah.
Well, I think everyone has a copy of the exhibit.
If you don't have a copy, so at the, I'm pretty good with this. Lower right corner there, you'll see there are arrows coming in from both sides. That is the edge of the existing cul-de-sac within the Colebrook property. And then from there, the hillside gently slopes up. And so this was a plan where we were proposing to use 4 4-story buildings to create this court like plan. And the reason that we thought that this was there we go, look at that. The reason that we thought that this was a really advantageous scheme is that it allowed for the preservation of a lot of open land around the perimeter to create buffers and screening and walking trails and those types of amenities. But also within, if you look at the darker green areas within the borderlands, just to give you a sense of scale, that primary green area inside of there is roughly the size of the football field in there. And so that is an area that we envisioned would be designed and constructed to be a park-like setting, if you will, for all the residents to use within that space.
And how did you choose to lay out the buildings? Can you just give a little more detail on the plan concept?
So, as I said, we investigated a series of different designs, and starting out initially with smaller buildings and trying to use buildings that would be, well, again, just a small garden apartments, if you will. And what we quickly found is that it's very inefficient. And as a result of that, you don't end up with good usable open space or good recreational space. And so we developed this approach to create, again, maximize the open space and recreation amenities. And so again, we created more open space, reduced impervious coverage, it's a more impactful outdoor amenity area for everyone. And then on the second page, if you just look at that, this shows you the ground floor plans for the buildings and then typical upper floors for the buildings. And so there are actually two different building types here. The one on the left is, you'll notice it says amenity area. It's kind of a gold color on the left, lower left. And that is, that would be essentially like what people might think of as the clubhouse area or whatever. That's the place where you would come in and there would be, you know, the gym and all the kinds of amenities that the residents would use. That's just the one building. And then the other three buildings would be patterned on the plans that you see on the right side of the sheet.
And you mentioned that the entrance to this plan comes off of an existing cul-de-sac that's there today, correct?
That's correct.
Does the existing cul-de-sac that's there today, was that originally put in and intended to connect to previously approved additional development of the 27 acres?
That's my understanding.
When you were here during Mr. Polinsky's testimony, correct?
That's correct.
He was testifying about the 196 plan and initially thought it was the 308 plan. Is this actually the 308 plan that we were talking about that evening?
This is the three. The 196 plan that we that was marked as Exhibit A6 was the plan that was the subject of the variance request.
If the preference was for this plan, as I understand it, why did the 196 plan, which is the A6 exhibit, only seek the 196 units in the context of the variance application?
Well, this plan, the A38 that shows the 308 units, this plan was presented to the townships. I think it's called the planning group. It was a group of some board members and township staff, and it was held here at the township building during the day on November 9th, 2021. And we made a presentation to the group and explained what our vision was for the property, but recognized that in order to achieve those goals, that we would have to do some kind of a zoning text amendment to enable this, both for density as well as area involved. And so at the conclusion of that meeting, we were told that the township was not interested in pursuing those zoning amendments or changes. And so we left the meeting, and after that, the owner, as in concert with their legal counsel, decided they were going to pursue the variance. And the variance was based on the notion, and I was not involved in preparing the 196 plan. The variance was, based on the idea that it was the expansion of the existing non-conformity, and that's how they derived the 196 units.
Do you believe that the 308 units shown on A38 would qualify as medium density?
Yes, this plan is just under 12 dwelling units per acre. I think it's works out to 11.4 something approximately, dwelling units per acre. And so that's based on the 57 acres, and I didn't include the change, so to speak, in the acreage, but it's less than 12 dwelling units per acre.
Mr. Chairman, may I have a moment, please? I don't have any further questions for Dr. Cassidy. At this time, the applicant would ask that all of the exhibits that have been marked up until this point be admitted. Thank you.
If I could just take a 5-minute break to get reorganized before. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Cassidy. I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience and your background. First, I want to verify, you've never served as a consultant for any of the Lancaster County municipalities that are members of the LIMC, have you?
I have.
Okay. And in fact, in your experience as a land planner, you've had very limited experience within Lancaster County, is that correct?
Relative to what?
Relative to other projects?
No, well, I've done a lot of private work in Lancaster County, but we have a lot of clients in Lancaster County,
Okay.
but not municipal consulting.
Okay. But isn't it true that the bulk of your work, private work, is still focused more on the eastern side of the state, in the Philadelphia and suburban Philadelphia areas?
That is true that we work primarily, but we work all throughout the tri-state area. I mean, we have 22 offices, so we have we work all over the place.
Okay, thank
But
you.
my work is primarily focused in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Okay. And I believe during the first night of your testimony, you indicated that you had specialized expertise in multifamily housing. Is that correct?
That is true.
All right. And you gave testimony on the first night that high density to you usually means 25 units per acre. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Okay. And that medium density usually means 10 to 12 units per acre. Is that correct?
And up to higher numbers, but yes, 10 to 12. Yes.
Okay. But am I correct, based on some questions from the board tonight, for the context of this case, you are considering 10 to 12 to be sufficient for this particular project, this particular property?
I'm saying that I'm saying that 10 to 12 dwelling units per acre is medium density. And what I'm looking at is the overall recommendation that the county Places 2040 plan had made, where they outlined an average density of 9 dwelling units per acre. So in order to achieve the 9 dwelling units per acre, you have a large portion of the township zoned at 5 dwelling units per acre. you're going to have higher density properties or higher density zoning available within the township to achieve the average.
Okay, but you're not advocating tonight for high density in East Hempfield Township in the range of 25 units per acre, is that correct?
I am not.
Okay, so what you're advocating for in this case is really medium density housing.
Correct.
Okay. And would it be correct, you're not giving an opinion that this township or any other township in Lancaster County is required to zone for high density residential housing, correct?
I am simply saying that all the municipalities have a responsibility to provide for growth, for population growth. And that we know that this region is going to be experiencing population growth over the coming years. And that East Hempfield Township, as well as all the other municipalities, and in particular, all of those that are situated within, or at least partially within, the urban growth area of the county, are going to have to provide for adequate zoning and housing opportunities for the growing population.
Okay. Did you personally, Dr. Cassidy, have any involvement in the development of Growing Together?
Did not.
Okay. Did you attend any of the meetings or workshops with regard to the preparation of Growing Together?
No.
Okay. How about the Township Comp Plan of 2016?
No.
Okay. How about Places 2040? Did you have any involvement with that
No.
particular document? Okay. Did you attend any of the meetings or workshops as that
I
was
did not.
developed? Have you looked as to any progress reports or follow-up on Places 2040 since its issuance?
Do you clarify that, please?
Sure. So you've given a lot of testimony tonight about Places 2040. Have you gone back to look and see if the county has issued any follow-up reports or documentation about Places 2040?
I have not.
Okay. Now, you've talked about projected population growth. Have you done any verification as to actual population growth?
We have looked at some of the data and that's been tracked in the years since the census was done. There are some updates available.
Okay, and have you looked at those updates as they relate to East Hempfield Township?
We have.
Okay, have you looked at that information as it relates to other townships and Lancaster City within Lancaster County?
But again, we've looked at the data, census data, but I haven't included that as part of mine. I haven't included those updates as part of my analysis.
Okay, are you aware that the actual change in population growth has actually been significantly less than originally projected?
Well, again, it's only been since 2010, so we're still a long way off from 2040.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to look at the U.S. Census Bureau's charts with regard to changes in population percentages for East Hempfield Township?
Regarding, when you say changes, do you mean total number of people?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And have you seen that those actual changes have been far less than what was originally projected?
Well, again, I would say that it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy that when there aren't places for people to live, that it's harder for them to come here.
Okay. Dr. Cassidy, in your work as a land planner, when you look at census information, do you take any note of the demographics of the population within a township?
Relative to,
Well,
Zoning?
relative, yes, for purposes of land planning and purposes of providing for adequate housing in a township, as a land planner, would you ever avail yourself of the census information as it relates to the demographics for age, sex, owner occupied housing, things of that
Sure.
nature?
so for, so that type of data is more useful when you're planning for, again, within a comprehensive plan. You're planning for all kinds of things, and housing density is one of them. But one of the, but along with that, you're planning for transportation, you're planning for recreation, you're planning for shopping, you're planning for everything. So you definitely take those kinds of things into consideration when you're looking at the entire picture. As it relates to, the total population number that, that is projected for the township, we were not looking at the data and saying, oh, well, there's going to be more people within this age group than another age group. We were looking at, the total number of people relative to density.
Are you aware that Lancaster County is a popular county for retirement communities?
I am,
Okay, so I assume it would not surprise you to learn that East Hempfield Township has over 26% of its population ages 65 and older.
that does not surprise me.
Okay. Would it surprise you that the percentage of owner occupied housing between the years 2018 and 2022, according to the US Census, was in the range of 72%?
That sounds about right.
Okay. Would it also surprise you that the percentage of the population in the township of individuals under the age of 18 is over 19%?
That doesn't sound out of line.
Okay. But given those numbers, that would not, as a land planner, factor into your determination as to how much multifamily housing should be provided for in the township?
No. Because, if I may, again, we do a lot of multifamily housing. And what we see is that in terms of people who are renting multifamily housing, they, the demographics are actually that it's people who are over 55 and people who are under 30. And so we see great concentrations within those areas. And I'm 62 and I'm not planning on moving into a retirement community, but I may get to the point where I don't want to cut my grass anymore. And so this has become a very, very, very popular alternative for people.
As you reviewed Growing Together, did you do a comprehensive review of the neighboring municipalities to determine whether multifamily dwellings were permitted and at what densities in those neighboring municipalities?
I did look at the neighboring municipalities and while we did not do a full, let's just say, analysis of how that breaks down across all municipalities, we did observe a wide range of zoning densities in surrounding municipalities.
Okay. But would you agree with me that Growing Together?
So,
Yeah.
could I just
Sure.
clarify? When you say a wide range,
Mhm.
what's the numbers here? We talking 5 to 10, 5 to 25?
I would say, I would characterize them as, it's a pretty common range that you saw zoning as, in the range of what you have in East Hempfield Township with 5 dwelling units per acre, to going up to 12 dwelling units per acre. And then there are ordinances which also don't necessarily calculate in terms of dwelling units per acre, but have other types of development standards that would allow for some higher densities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you agree with me that growing together provides that not all uses have to be provided for in every municipality, but instead it should be planned and provided for within a reasonable geographic area of the plan?
Are you talking about the LIMC growing together?
I am,
plan? Yes. It's my understanding that that plan is no longer in effect.
Okay, but you've given a lot of testimony in this hearing about growing together and then the township comprehensive plan. So, and certainly the township ordinances that have stemmed from those documents. So I want to make sure we're clear here. You would agree with me that growing together doesn't dictate that each municipality that's part of growing together has to provide for all of these uses, but instead the municipalities can rely upon the full area to provide for those uses reasonably.
I don't agree that that is the case today.
Okay, my question wasn't whether it was true today, but would you agree with me that is what is stated within the plan? Within growing together?
I would agree that that was the intention of the plan.
Okay, thank you. Now, turning to the township's comprehensive plan that was adopted in June of 2016, would you agree with me that that plan provides that growth has been steadily decreasing in the township?
That growth has been steadily decreasing?
Correct, yes.
I would say that with the time, that the perspective, if I read the comprehensive plan and there's a tone to the comprehensive plan, I would say. And that tone is that we don't really need to worry about growth and change because development has slowed down and we're not going to, we're going to have people moving out. There are lots of comments in there about people moving out of their homes and retiring and other people coming and moving into them. And it's just this idea that it's replacement population. But again, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you do not have adequate housing for people and not just literally a place that keeps the rain out, but a place where people want to live. They are modern multi-family residences that are based on the expectations of the marketplace today, which are high.
Okay, so Dr. Cassidy, I just want to clarify because
That's what is lacking.
okay. You've talked about the tone of the township's comprehensive plan, and you've already indicated you weren't involved in any of that development. You weren't here for any of the meetings or hearings on that plan. You would agree with me that your comments about the tone of the plan are purely speculative, wouldn't you?
They are based on my reading.
Okay, but that's your own personal opinion. That's not an expert opinion. That's just your own characterization of the document.
It is my characterization.
Okay, thank you. So if the plan on page 8 references and provides a population growth chart that shows that population change is decreasing, you don't have any verifiable information here today as you sit here to dispute that fact in the comprehensive plan, do you?
I'm turning page 8.
Sure. I don't know if the board has their documents or if you're able to put this up. It was exhibit A14. It's the township's comprehensive plan.
Okay, so what was your question then?
Well, my question is really, you didn't do anything to verify whether this table number 1 in the comprehensive plan was erroneous, did you?
Did you say erroneous?
Erroneous, yeah.
We did not confirm that it was erroneous,
Okay,
but.
so if the statements in the plan provides that growth has been steadily decreasing, as you sit here today, you don't have any information to refute that statement, do you?
Well, I don't have an exhibit, but I have read census data that does demonstrate that there has been population growth in East Hempfield Township.
During the time that's represented in this table number 1?
Not during the time represented.
My questions to you are limited to what's in this plan.
What's in this table.
Okay, thank you. And would you agree, turning to page 9 of the comprehensive plan, would you agree that the plan indicates that township remains average with respect to density?
Average in what way?
Taking a look at the last paragraph on page 9. It begins with respect to density, East Hempfield Township remains about average for the area with 1,129 persons per square mile. Do you see that statement?
I do see that statement.
Okay. And as you sit here today, you don't have any information to dispute that fact as it's laid out in this comprehensive plan with regard to density.
In terms of the density today.
My question is, as it appears in this plan as of June 1st of 2016, you don't have any facts as you sit here today to refute whether or not that statement in the comprehensive plan was true and correct, correct?
That is correct, in 2016.
All right. When we were here 2 months ago, Dr. Cassidy, you provided some exhibits concerning major roads and traffic volumes. Do you recall that?
Can you refer?
Sure, it's specifically exhibit A15. Okay, you have A15. So this A15 is a document that you provided for the board. It's based on information from PennDOT, as I understand it, reflecting the various roads through the township. State roads through the township, listing the average daily traffic volume and the functional classification of each roadway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to be clear about your testimony. Is your testimony that high traffic volumes through the township would relate to an increase in the need for local housing?
The purpose of this is to show that the township is not a rural location and that it is an area that is growing and urbanizing and as expressed in those numbers.
Okay, but there's nothing about this data that necessarily correlates to a need for increased housing locally within the township, is there?
Generally, what we see when we are doing planning and planning for growth in communities is that we see that when there is an increase in commercial activity and in traffic and people moving throughout the area, that this increases the demand for housing because there are places nearby where people are working and shopping and ends up leading to growth patterns. And so this is showing that the township is in fact in the path of growth that occurs as it radiates from the center of the city of Lancaster along these arterial highways and expressways.
But you didn't do any analysis to determine who's using these roadways? Are they township residents or are they residents of other municipalities traveling through to get to another municipality?
Oh, this isn't claiming in any way that these are township residents. These are roads that are regional, roads. That's the point of the data.
So you would agree there's no direct correlation between that data and the need for multifamily dwellings?
I would not agree with that. I would just agree that this represents the cars that are passing through the township.
All right, thank you. Now, Dr. Cassidy, on multiple nights now, you've indicated that multifamily dwellings are essentially permitted in name only within the township. And I think tonight you're,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what?
you've indicated that multifamily dwellings in the township are essentially permitted in name only. And I believe your testimony tonight was that it was illusory, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, isn't it true, however, that it is feasible to develop multifamily dwelling units within the confines of the township ordinance as it currently exists?
It is possible for it to occur. They are a permitted use, and that is not that's not being disputed. What I'm saying is that the reality of it is that you do not have the standards within the ordinance that would enable them to be an economic choice when you can, for a developer or contractor or landowner, when you look at the properties and you can achieve the kinds of densities that you see in Veranda and these other neighborhoods where they can achieve the 5 dwelling units per acre. And they, if you can build that housing type at that density, then there's no reason to try to build a multifamily building when there are all these other constraints that would make it economically challenging to do so.
Okay, so it would be true then, your conclusion is really based on the fact that this is not the most economically lucrative use of the property, correct?
Objection, that's mischaracterizes his testimony. He did not testify that it would be the most economically. He said that the economics would drive a developer or an owner not to build multifamily.
Okay, I'll rephrase my question. Would you agree with me that the zoning ordinance as currently drafted does not provide the most economically lucrative choice for a builder to build multifamily dwellings?
I would say that it's a deterrent.
Okay, thank you. I am curious, you offered some plans tonight for the space built out, the floor plans with the 308 units. It was a four story buildings, correct? You remember that
Yes.
plan? Okay. Did those plans provide for elevators?
Yes.
And were those elevators depicted within the plans?
I believe they are.
They are.
Thank you. I apologize. I think a lot of these questions have been answered, so I'm gonna just try and double check my notes.
If I may just let you know, while I was waiting for you, I did go through my folder and I have the Langsford County Planning Commission, June 2012, census data and projections for all of Lancaster County, so I can answer any questions you have about that if you would like to ask one.
From 2012?
Yes.
No, I don't have any questions for you about that. Turning back to the township's comprehensive plan, which is Exhibit A14. Would you agree that on page 22 of that comprehensive plan, under subsection 4, it indicates that the township has the lowest median rent of all of the adjoining municipalities other than West Hempfield Township?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree that that was identified as a positive factor for the township?
I do see that it is identified or characterized that way in this document.
Okay. Turning to the zoning ordinance and the statement of intent for the RM district. You would agree that that statement of intent for the RM district is to provide opportunities for medium density housing, correct?
I have to pull up that document.
Okay, that would be Exhibit A36.
Okay, I have the RM zoning.
Yeah,
district in
and
front of me.
just so we're clear, Exhibit A36 is your zoning district analysis for the RM, VR.
Analysis is what you're talking about, not the actual.
Correct, not the actual zoning ordinance. I just want to be clear. But you do in that analysis cite to the statement of intent for the RM medium density residential zone. You see that?
Excuse me, Counselor, we're talking about A36, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, you just have to give me a moment, so these are, very specific questions and there's a lot here, so just making sure I'm reading. What is your question about this?
Well, I just want to verify, you do agree with me that the statement of intent as set forth in the zoning ordinance and is reflected in your analysis is that the RM medium density residential zone is to provide opportunities for medium density housing, offering a range of housing types, sizes, and permits ancillary businesses that service existing and new neighborhoods. You see that?
Yes,
Okay. So you would agree that the purpose of the RM district is to provide medium density housing, correct?
I would agree that that's what the statement of intent says.
Okay. But yet when we turn to page 2 of that same analysis, in the 4th paragraph of that page,
Is this A36?
A36.
Yeah.
Dr. Cassidy, you have page 2 of A36 in front of you. You do not?
Here it is.
That's page 2, I don't want page 1, that's what it.
Okay, where are the originals? Can we go off the record? Okay. You do have them.
Off the record.
Can I just grab these?
He just handed me a copy.
Yeah, I mean, it's all exciting about that.
These are all my notes.
Unless you're gonna share with me his notes, it's not appropriate for him to have notes at the stand.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, so let's have you give all your paperwork back to your council except for
Okay.
836.
You don't want to have any exhibits or anything?
We'll give you the exhibits.
Okay. These are all the some documents and everything else. Yeah.
My apologies. By way of background, typically when we're in court, the witness has nothing other than the court exhibits, so I just want to make sure we're following procedure. Okay. Sorry,
Going back on the record.
back on the record, thank
Back
you.
on the record, please.
All right, so Dr. Cassidy, you've been given exhibit A36 now.
Yes, I have.
Okay, turning to page 2 of A36. I'm sorry, looking down at the third paragraph on that page.
Okay.
Um, And I just want to be correct, A36 on the second page, this contains your analysis, correct? Okay, so the statement that the RM district has the greatest concentration of existing multifamily residential dwellings in the township, that's your statement, your analysis, correct?
Yes,
But you go on to then make the leap to say it's rational and reasonable that this district should provide the highest residential density. Do you see that?
yes.
Okay.
Would you like to do it fine?
Nope, I'm going to ask you some more questions.
Okay.
Thank you. But if the RM district is characterized as medium density, would you agree with me that having only 5 units per acre would satisfy that intent of medium density dwellings? Okay, why not?
Because it's low density.
And you characterize RM as having the need or the ability to provide the highest residential density solely because it's predominantly residential and includes the largest parcels in size in the township?
Because of the available large parcel sizes and in the other districts, as I was explaining earlier this evening, there are a lot of small infill opportunities. So in little neighborhoods where there are undeveloped lots and houses that can be redeveloped and the back are warehouses and all of those things, you're going to the achievable densities are going to be low. So if you have large parcels, then those parcels would have the greatest opportunity to provide for more multifamily dwellings than for the other districts.
We're at 837. Okay, we've given you what your council previously marked as A37. Am I correct? This is the map that you or your office prepared.
Correct.
Okay, and my understanding, you calculated the total acreage for parcels with the potential for residential use, including family use. Is that correct with this map?
We calculate all the parcels that are shown here in gold is what we calculated, yes.
Okay. In doing so, did you calculate the percentage of total land available in the township for multifamily use to include land that has already been developed?
No,
Okay, so everything in gold is a parcel that is undeveloped?
correct.
Okay, would that be with the exception?
They're undeveloped or not fully developed. So when I say not fully developed, that means that if there was a parcel and it was developed with only 2 dwelling units per acre, and it was zoned for 5 dwelling units per acre, we still included it.
Okay. Did you do a calculation to determine the percentage of land in the township that currently remains undeveloped?
When you say undeveloped, are you including farmland, or are you talking about only land that is zoned for multifamily residential?
Okay, I'm talking undeveloped, but excluding ag land, because ag land does constitute development. Would you agree with that statement?
That's, I would agree.
Okay, so other than agricultural land, did you do a calculation to determine what percentage of land across the township currently remains undeveloped?
This map is only calculating the available undeveloped land that is zoned for some form of multifamily.
Okay, thank you. If I may have 5 minutes just to double check my notes, I believe I'm very close to being done.
Go off the record, please.
Okay, I don't have any further questions right now for Dr. Cassidy.
Okay. Which states and we'll open it up to the board. Any questions? Mr. Hanson?
Dr. Cassidy, based on your testimony, that you consider high density multifamily residential to be 25 units per acre and greater. Using that 25 number for this particular piece of property, that would total 1,583 units. This property. Subtract 342 that already exists. We were roughly 1,200 some units. Based on your earlier testimony, I believe it was from the margin. He said that routes 283 and Route 30, that wedge between them, makes this an ideal area for.
That is not correct. What I was saying is that wedge, back to what I was explaining earlier, is that when you have that kind of development that's happening in that wedge, that what's occurring is that the whole area is developing, and as it does, because there are businesses and places of employment and stores and shops and schools and everything else, that naturally then draws people. So then it becomes a kind of a ecosystem, if you will. And that's what I was trying to characterize. So I wasn't saying that it's multifamily dwellings and that's just where they want to be. It's that they want to be proximate to all of these other services and, transportation opportunities, those types of things.
Right, so based on what you just said, the existing infrastructure / roadways in that particular area for the apartments, and it's being very, very conservative. If you were to go with that 25 dwelling units per acre, you would add approximately 2,482 car trips a day in that area. You think that our infrastructure can support that?
I didn't propose that there would be 2,400 units within
based on your 25 units per acre.
I simply said that 25 dwelling units per acre is what I consider to be high density zoning, as far as a density for residential zoning. I didn't propose that is what should be located in this area.
I'm not saying you did, I'm just saying using that because I want to continue with my question here. Particularly for the road infrastructure in this area, the number of 10 to 12 units per acre would be more realistic that the infrastructure could handle, correct?
Well, I haven't analyzed your infrastructure. I have testified to the fact that the growing population within this region is going to need that type of density in order to be accommodated throughout the area. And so that isn't assuming that everything in terms of the infrastructure that would be required for that exists today. It's saying that that's what is going to need to be planned for, and that may or may not include improvements to infrastructure.
The places 2040, I think references high density around 12 units per acre, correct?
They don't characterize it as being high density to my knowledge.
The MPC does not stipulate. They do recognize high density, but they don't stipulate numbers for that, correct?
That's correct.
Um. The average. And just again, average. Number of dwellings per acre in Lancaster County for high density. Well,
Again, you keep using this term high. I'm characterizing that objectively as being medium density.
I understand. But you would agree that in Lancaster County, high density is around 12 units per acre, correct?
When you use the term high density, are you referring to the highest densities that occur within municipalities?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I would agree that outside of the city and there may be a couple of exceptions, but that outside of the city, that densities in the magnitude, general magnitude of 12 dwelling units per acre would represent the higher end of zoning densities within the county.
Thank you. No further questions this time.
Any other questions? The witness? Andy, any questions of the witness? It is a picture. We.
I have no question.
Oh, you woke up, okay.
There he is.
Sorry, I was on mute.
You have any questions of the witness?
No.
Okay, thanks. Anyone in the audience or on Zoom? Any questions of the witness? Seeing none. Okay, do you have any redirect?
Briefly,
Please.
Dr. Cassidy, the township solicitor was asking you about the demographics and some of the aging demographics within Lancaster County. And you were saying that at some point, when I don't want to cut my grass anymore, this becomes a very popular alternative for people. When you said this, did you mean multifamily?
Yes,
I'm sorry?
I did mean multifamily.
And in that context, did you specifically mean what you would refer to early in your testimony as contemporary, what would be driven by the market, multifamily?
Yes, so the types of multifamily dwellings that would meet contemporary market demands. And I showed an example. I forget what the exhibit number is now, but it was just a plan view from the crossings in Manheim Township. But that's a project that I would characterize as being something that is consistent with that type of multifamily property.
Meaning something that even a retired person would be interested in living in.
Yes, the kind of place that if I told my wife we were going to sell our house, she would be willing to go live there.
The township solicitor also asked you about the last paragraph of page 21 of A14, which is the township's 2016 comprehensive plan. I'm going to show you that page of the comp plan. Would you agree that in terms of referring to the affordability of certain housing within the township, that paragraph is talking about single-family houses and not multifamily?
I'm sorry, what page are you referring to?
Page 21, at the bottom paragraph that you would ask the witness about.
Yes, this paragraph is referring to owner occupied housing.
Owner occupied housing as in home, single family homes.
Yes, it says, the first sentence says, at 229,900, East Hempfield Township ranks as the highest among our neighbors for the median price of a house. However, that statistic does not show the large number of houses in the township which are available at much lower prices, often in the 100,000 to 150,000 range.
I have no further questions.
Get some clarifications, about the county's comp plans, that there's seeking an average of 9 dwelling units per acre, something to that effect, and the county plan, there's some sort of statement that the county should aim for 9 dwelling units per acre. Is that part of the testimony about the comp plan, the county's comp plan?
The county, and we can, if you want me to specifically reference it, we would have to get the exhibits out, but generally speaking, the county comprehensive plan has target densities for different parts of the county, and the 9 dwelling units per acre is the recommended average density for locations within the urban area.
Okay, so that would be across all types of residential districts then?
Correct.
Okay, not just districts that allow high density housing?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Staff, any questions? Okay. Maybe. You have any other witnesses that you bring forth?
I do at the next hearing.
Then you're complete with it.
I am, thank you.
I presume,
I don't have anything to.
no, not tonight, I don't expect. Will you have witnesses?
I will. I'd like to get an assessment from council as to how many more witnesses he has, so I know when I need to be ready. Correct.
I have at least 4 more witnesses.
Do you
I
have a
doubt
projection on how long you're gonna need? for each?
none of them will be as long as Dr. Cassidy. Some of them will be short, but I would say I will need the July hearing. I will need the September hearing, and depending on how it goes, I may need one more hearing. I can't guarantee that, but that would be my best projection at this time.
It gives you an idea of when you need to have your witnesses there.
It sounds like the earliest would be September, so.
Yes,
Okay.
but, I don't want, have witnesses come and then sit through.
Understood, neither do I.
I will definitely give the township solicitor notice of where I am, and if I think I'm going to finish quickly on a last night and there's going to be a large window of time to fill, I will definitely give Ms. Pfeiffer a heads up about that for sure.
Appreciate that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, then, I forgot my iPhone, so when is the next?
July 18th is the third Thursday.
Okay. So then we'll be on July, would you say 19?
18.
18. Is the next special meeting for the students.
I will be unable to attend that meeting.
Well, just put your picture up like you did.
I won't be available at all.
Okay. Gentlemen. We should be okay. You can listen to the transcript or read the transcript.
Very good. That's all, yeah, very good.
Mr. Nick, you.
I have nothing further, thank
I thought
you.
You had something to say when you stood up.
No.
Okay, with that, then. Which board will spend in recess. To the case until July. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your evenings.
Thank you. Same to you.
Okay, couple, record. Okay, housekeeping
Yeah, we're all
items.
correct.